Nothing quite beats a new bike day. Something exciting behind this box. Let me remove it. So there we go. What do we think? Isn't that a great looking bike? It is, of course, a 2021 Giant TCR Advanced Pro 1 disc, and this model with a mechanical Ultegra group set and these carbon wheels and a power meter costs £3,699. I know, that is great value for money. I mean, it's still a lot of cash, don't get me wrong, but it's a bike that easily looks twice the price. So that is quite impressive indeed. Right, let's go through some details, but first a quick bit of context about this bike and where it sits in sort of the road bike landscape and what you need to know before we dive in. So the TCR was first introduced way back in the mid to late 90s. It was a radical frame design with a compact sloping top tube and a small rear triangle that was lighter, stiffer and more aero than conventional bikes of the time. And it also allowed Giant with just 2 or 3 frame sizes to accommodate a wide range of rider heights compared to 12, 13, 14 sizes that some frame manufacturers were using back then. And this is a 9th generation, last updated in 2016. And although I know it looks very similar to the previous TCR, they have changed every aspect on it. So in a way, it's a bit like that iconic sports car, the Porsche 911, that generally they look the same, but every time they release a new model, they change every panel on it and every aspect just to find more performance, find more gains in performance, and that is the case with the Giant TCR. So the big focus for Giant has been on improving the stiffness to weight ratio by making it lighter, improving the tyre clearance, so better real world usability, and improving the aerodynamics. So it's not an outright aero bike, they have the Propel for that, but like some other companies, they try to find aero improvements where they can without compromising the other key metrics that the bike is based on. Right, that's enough waffling. Let's go in some detail and I'll point out some of the nice things on this frame. So the new TCR is lighter and more aero than the previous model. And while it looks generally the same, they have actually analysed every aspect of the frame to find those improvements. And we'll start with weight. So a size medium has a claimed weight of 860 grams, a 40 gram saving over the previous model, and the fork is also lighter, coming in at a claimed 360 grams. This is a size ML, and on the scales it comes in at about 7.5 kilograms, which is pretty decent for the spec and price of this bike. It's not as light as the range-topping SL model. It uses T700 carbon fibre rather than T800 on the high-end bike, and has a regular non-integrated seat mast as well, and the carbon fibre layout isn't quite as highly refined as the SL, but 860 grams is a pretty decent weight for a mid-range bike, which this is. It's also more aero than the previous TCR, and where you can really see that is in the brand new down tube. It is absolutely massive and as wide as a BB86 bottom bracket. So they made it much wider, which would be good for stiffness, but one of the key focuses was improving airflow around 2 water bottles. So when they tested it in the wind tunnel, they actually tested it with 2 water bottles. And the shape of this new down tube, they call a truncated ellipse, is rounded on the front surface and flattened on the back. And it's designed to move air smoothly around the 2 water bottles on the frame. So real world testing there, testing it in a wind tunnel with 2 water bottles, because who rides without a water bottle? So it's more aero than the previous TCR, which you'd expect, at a wider range of yaw angles, and also better in their testing than key rivals like the Specialized Tarmac and the Trek Amonda, to name a couple of examples. At the front of the bike, we have a tapered Overdrive 2 head tube, and you can see how they flatten off the back profile there, and a brand new fork, which is stiffer than the old fork. And it's also got a flattened back profile, again, to manage airflow in the front of the bike. And the front brake hose is now routed inside the fork, which it wasn't on the previous design. We have 12mm through axles with flat mount calipers and a nifty little tool to remove the 12mm through axle, made from carbon fibre as well. So a real nice attention to detail on a bike of this price. Moving to the back of the bike, you'll see that they haven't followed the trend in the road bike market at the moment for drop seat stays. I mean, they are dropped a little bit, but that is part of the TCR design, but they haven't gone for a radical sloped rear stays like many manufacturers are doing. Speaking of Giant, they said this design works for them and achieves all the requirements they want in the TCR, so they didn't have to follow that trend for massively dropped rear stays. We've got an aero seat post with a bolt underneath the flap for adjusting the seat height. You don't get the integrated seat mast on the SL, so it's not quite as light, but it's easier to adjust in the real world. The seat tube, as a result, is deeper, and we've now got a curve around the rear tyre for clearance down there. BB86 bottom bracket. There's pros and cons to threaded versus press fit. Giant says they've been using BB86 for many, many years and not had any problems with it at all. And indeed, if you go on the forums, you don't see many people complaining about press fit on Giant bikes. So that really is because the issues with press fit are around quality control. And as Giant makes all the bikes themselves, they're a manufacturer, they have control of every process of the manufacturing. Quality is first class, and that's why I've not had any issues with BB86. And the benefit of a press fit, as you can see in this example, is you can really oversize the down tube, the seat tube and the chainstay to get the massive stiffness and the weight benefits that a press fit offers. We've got skinny rear stays for compliance. They're dropped down from the top tube a little bit as well, just to maximise any bending force at the seat post. And quite oversized symmetrical chainstays. They're not massively oversized, a nice kind of middle ground. And again, a 12mm through axle with flat mount caliper at the back and internal routing for the brake hose and the rear gear cable. A massive feature of this new TCR is a massive tyre clearance. This bike, would you believe it, will take a 32mm wide tyre, which is absolutely insane for a road race bike. That truly is staggering, because a few years ago an endurance bike would have offered that sort of clearance, but to get it on a road race bike in 2020 is just absolutely phenomenal. It really points to where road bikes are developing, that even a road race bike like this has clearance for up to 32mm wide tyres. So it really gives you plenty of options to fit the tyres you want on the bike and really tune it to the sort of riding you're doing and the state of your local roads. Something else to talk about, which is a really hot topic in the bike world at the moment, is cable routing. And integration is a key buzzword, and it basically amounts to all the cables and hoses being routed inside a frame, up through the stem and into the handlebar for a really clean and low drag look. Giant does that on its Propel aero bike with the cables all inside the frame. But on the TCR, they decided that the usability, the easy serviceability and just the easier maintenance and being able to take it apart, and also being able to change the stem and the handlebar as you like, were bigger benefits than the benefits you get from putting all the cables inside the frame and the fork. And I can't really fault them for that. I think it's a fair reason to stick to this kind of cable routing setup. These are mechanical gear cables and they don't like going around sharp corners. They like a nice big curve, hence this big curve into the down tube. If you go for the DI2 version above it, you won't have the cables, you'll instead have the DI2 wire go inside the port with the rear brake hose, so it'll be much cleaner. So you want a cleaner look, go for the DI2 version, but mechanical, this is sort of a compromise of having gear cables, which, as I said, don't like going around tight corners. And the other thing is, a bike like this is much easier to travel with. So if you're planning to go on any holidays to Spain or Italy or France, taking a bike like this apart is much easier. As an example, I went to France about 2 years ago and I was testing at the time the Specialized S-Works Venge, now a very impressive aero bike with the cables internally routed inside the stem and handlebar. But taking it apart was, to be honest, a bit of a nightmare, and it was like being in an episode of The Krypton Factor.
The next step is to study the various different shaped pieces and find the ones that naturally dovetail.
Another key benefit as well, and it can't be overstated how important it is, you can fit any stem you want, any handlebar you want, no problems at all. You're not tied into a bespoke system as you are with integrated systems. So pros and cons to both. Let's talk equipment, and this bike costs £3,699. And it's got a Shimano Ultegra mechanical group set with hydraulic disc brakes. We've got a 52-36 chain set on the front and a wide range 1130 cassette on the back. And I've left a sticker on because otherwise you wouldn't notice, this bike actually has a dual-sided power meter, which is amazing at the price point to get a power meter included out of the box. We're only seeing a small handful of manufacturers put power meters on their very top end bikes, costing £9,000, £10,000. So to get a dual-sided power meter on a bike costing just over £3,500 is fantastic and really shows how good value for money this bike is. So it's Giant's own design, dual-sided power meter. You can barely see the modules on the back of the crank arms. ANT Plus, Bluetooth compatible, so Wahoo, Garmin's not a problem. You get a charging cable included, so out of the box should be ready to go, no problems with hooking up with your favourite computer. A big feature on this bike are the brand new SLR1 wheels. So all new wheel sets, and they're really big talking points. They look like another set of carbon wheels, but there's a lot going on here. So you might remember they launched the Cadex range at the Tour de France last year, and these new wheels are based on the same rim profile, so 19mm wide internal width, aero profile, hookless, tubeless ready. Compared to the Cadex wheels, these use a lower grade of carbon and external nipples, which is no bad thing, much easier to look after than internal nipples on the higher end Cadex wheels, but you're getting the same fundamental aero profile and that hookless 19mm width, which is great for wide tyres. And the hubs are a highlight as well. They use different hub shells to the more expensive Cadex wheels, but importantly, the internals are actually the same. So the bearings in there are the same, and according to Giant, they claim that these bearings have 69% less drag than the benchmark DT Swiss 240 hubs, which if true is absolutely staggering. So what Giant is offering is a really high-end wheel set. You don't get some of the fancy carbon and hub shells of the Cadex wheels, but you get the core technology you want, the high quality bearings and that fantastic wide rim profile. So yeah, really nice attention to detail. What do they sound like? Let's give you a spin test. I think the wheels run for days and days. They're very smooth. So new wheels, also new tyres, their own Gavia 25mm wide tubeless tyres. And a nice feature about buying a bike from a Giant dealer is that they are tubeless ready. So you've got tubeless valves, they're sealant inside, so you're tubeless ready to go from a shop. So tubeless, power meter, what more do you want? It's not only the frame and the wheels that have seen big improvements compared to the previous TCR, the contact points have been improved hugely as well. So we've got new Contact SL alloy handlebars and stem, and would you believe it, the handlebar is 40 grams lighter than last year's bike, and the stem is 15 grams. So to find that sort of weight saving on the alloy handlebars and stems is quite impressive, and really shows they've put a lot of attention into the finishing details on this bike. And it's a nice looking stem as well, got a nice shape to it, and they trimmed the steering tube, which is nice of them, thanks Dave, and some nice aero spacers, which makes it look very flush, very clean at the front of the bike. The handlebar got a nice compact drop, as you can see, and it's finished with some lovely grippy textured bar tape. Wow, so nice attention to detail. And the final attention to detail is you get included with the bike an out front mount for your Wahoo or Garmin computer. It attaches to the two lower bolts on the stem faceplate. Very neat, easy to use. It's nice to get that included with the box. You don't have to strap a computer to your stem or get an optional third-party out front mount. So a nice attention to detail. And then moving to the back of the bike, we find a brand new Fleet SL saddle, which is one of these new on-trend short stubby designs that I personally really like. Got a pressure reducing channel down the middle, nice kickback at the rear to keep you planted on a saddle, nice amount of padding, looks like a good saddle, can't wait to try it out. So that is everything you need to know about the brand new 2021 Giant TCR Advanced Pro 1 disc. I'm going to fit some pedals and go for a ride, and in my next video I'll give you some first ride impressions on how the bike actually performs out on the road. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that. But that's all for now. Got any questions, put them down below. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching.